Elena arrived at the Moretti estate before sunrise, as she had done every weekday for the past 3 years. The mansion overlooking the hills outside New York looked more like a fortress than a home, protected by high iron gates, surveillance cameras, and silent guards who barely acknowledged anyone's presence. She walked through the marble entrance carrying her tablet, a notebook and a fresh cup of black coffee, prepared exactly the way Alessandro Moretti preferred it. Every minute of his day depended on her organization. Meetings with lawyers, business executives, and influential figures were scheduled with military precision. Although rumors painted Alessandro as a ruthless mafia boss, ferret across the country, Elena had only seen the disciplined man who valued loyalty, intelligence, and absolute discretion. She admired the calm authority he carried into every room, even when dangerous negotiations were taking place behind closed doors. Over time, admiration quietly transformed into something she never intended to feel. Elena found herself noticing the smallest details about Alessandro. She knew when he skipped breakfast because he was under pressure, when the faint line between his eyebrows meant he was worried, and when his rare smile appeared after a successful meeting. Yet she never crossed the invisible line between employer and employee. She buried her emotions beneath professionalism, convincing herself that they would eventually disappear. She understood the reality of his world. Powerful enemies surrounded him, alliances shifted overnight, and every personal relationship carried political consequences. There was no place in that life for an ordinary woman, with a quiet heart and impossible dreams. Everything changed during a private dinner, attended by the leaders of several influential families. Elena remained in the background, ensuring every detail ran smoothly, until Alessandro stood to make an announcement. His voice remained steady as he revealed his engagement to Isabella Romano, the daughter of another powerful mafia family. The room erupted with applause, congratulations, and raised glasses, celebrating what everyone called a historic alliance. Elena forced herself to smile while her heart shattered. Behind her composed expression, she continued serving guests, answering phone calls, and updating schedulers as though nothing had happened. No one noticed the pain hidden behind her calm face. She realized that the future she had secretly imagined had never truly existed. Alessandro's marriage was not only expected, but necessary for maintaining peace between dangerous organizations. Late that evening, after the mansion had fallen silent and the last guest had departed, Elena returned alone to her small apartment in Manhattan. She removed her shoes, sat beside the window overlooking the city lights, and allowed the tears she had suppressed all evening to fall freely. She understood she could not remain by Alessandro's side while watching another woman become his wife. Remaining would slowly destroy the dignity she had fought to preserve. Taking a blank sheet of paper, she carefully wrote a formal resignation letter, thanking him for every opportunity and wishing him success in the future. When she signed her name at the bottom, her hands trembled. She folded the letter neatly, placed it inside an envelope, and whispered to herself that leaving was the only way to save her heart, even if it meant walking away from the man she had loved. In silence for years the following morning, Elena arrived at the Moretti estate earlier than usual, hoping to leave her resignation letter before Alessandro began his day. The mansion was unusually quiet, with only the distant footsteps of security guards echoing through the marble hallways. She placed the sealed envelope carefully in the center of his polished mahogany desk, beside his morning schedule and a freshly prepared cup of black coffee. For a brief moment she considered taking the letter back, pretending none of it had happened. Instead, she stepped away, inhaled deeply, and waited outside his office. Minutes later, Alessandro entered wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His sharp eyes immediately noticed the envelope. He opened it without a word, slowly reading every line while Elena stood silently across the room, trying to hide the storm of emotions behind her composed expression. When he finished reading, Alessandro folded the letter with surprising care. Instead of throwing it aside, he looked directly into Elena's eyes, his expression unreachable. "You're resigning?" he asked quietly. Elena nodded, keeping her voice steady, as she explained that she wanted to pursue another opportunity and believed it was time for a new chapter in her life. She avoided mentioning the engagement, knowing it would only reveal the feelings she had spent years hiding. Alessandro remained silent for several seconds, before standing from his chair and walking around the desk. Every step echoed through the office, making Elena's heartbeat faster. When he finally stopped in front of her, his answer was simple but absolute. "You're not leaving." His words carried the weight of an order. Yet there was an unfamiliar emotion behind them that she had never heard before. Elena gathered the courage to meet his gaze. She reminded him that he was about to marry Isabella Romano, and that her presence would only complicate matters. She insisted that her decision was personal, and had nothing to do with the company. Alessandro turned toward the large window overlooking the estate, remaining silent as if carefully choosing every word. Finally, he admitted that the engagement was far more complicated than anyone realized. Though he refused to explain further, he simply said that certain responsibilities demanded sacrifices, and that not everything people believed was true. Elena listened in confusion, sensing genuine exhaustion beneath his calm exterior. For the first time since she had met him, Alessandro looked less like the ferret mafia boss, more like a man trapped inside obligations he could no longer escape. Without another word, Alessandro tore the resignation letter into small pieces and dropped them into the wastebasket. Elena stared in disbelief, unsure whether to ask or walk away. Before she could speak, his phone rang, with urgent news from his security chief about unusual movements involving rival families. Alessandro answered with immediate authority, giving precise instructions while remaining completely composed. When the call ended, he looked back at Elena with unexpected sincerity. "I need someone I can trust," he said quietly, "and that's you." Those words left her speechless. She realized his refusal had not come from arrogance, but from genuine dependence on the one person who had never betrayed him. As she left the office, still overwhelmed by unanswerable questions, Elena understood that her attempt to walk away had only drawn her deeper into the dangerous world surrounding Alessandro Moretti, where loyalty and love were becoming impossible to separate.